Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. The federal government has closed its case of non-asset declaration charges against the suspended Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onnoghen, for alleged failure to disclose some of his assets in his asset declaration forms submitted to the Code of Conduct Bureau. Joining us now to speak on this matter is Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Olisa Agbakoba. You're welcome to the studio. Good to see you again on the morning show.
Absolutely.
Well, before we go to the particular, let's start from the general.
Right.
That is, in this regard, I'm referring to the elections. You're on record as having said that, these 2019 general elections, that people voted on the basis of tribal and primordial sentiments.
Absolutely.
What exactly do you mean by that?
If you look at the voting pattern, you'll find that there are the several strongholds and battlegrounds. So the southeast, where I come from, PDP, voted for Atiku. The only place I thought may have voted, sensibly, if I should use the word that way, the southwest. The north voted primordially because they voted, essentially, if we should believe them, for the APC. So when I looked at the analysis, I found that it wasn't scientific. And that was the shame of it, that Nigeria in 2019 is still voting on the basis of lack of issues. No issues drove the elections. That's why I made that comment. Well,
but Atiku Abubakar is from the northern part of the country.
Yes.
He didn't.
But he got votes in the southeast.
He didn't do so well.
Yes.
in the north.
Yes.
Right? He got more votes in the southeast and also southwest and south-south.
Yes.
Now, how is that ethnic, considering that he's not a southerner, he's a northerner?
Remember, I used two words, ethnic and primordial. So we had an interest, those of us from the southeast. I'm not saying I voted for him. I wouldn't say who I voted for. But primordially, the southeast was voting for Atiku because, of course, P.W. was the vice president on the ticket. That's it.
Well, the last time you were on the show, which was about 2 months ago, you said, concerning the suspended CJN trial, you said it was going to be a short-lived case, in your words. You said because you were citing lack of jurisdiction and lack of due process. You said by simply citing Nguta versus Attorney General, it would be a done deal. 2 months down the line, we're still here.
I thought so. That's why I petitioned the NJC. I thought, in all wisdom, that the chair of the tribunal, of the CCT, who decided that Nguta didn't have a case on the basis of the Court of Appeals decision, would also apply the same. In fact, I would have thought that he would have said, why is he here? Having said to Sylvester Nguta that you don't have to be here because the first port of call is the NJC. So it's surprising to me. But what has happened? I'm actually happy that the tape played out. I was one who said that the CJN's tactics should be to challenge it on jurisdictional issues and other issues. But now we've seen that the federal government called six witnesses. 3 witnesses into the case, it collapses a pack of cards. So nothing vindicates the CJN more than the fact that the federal government's case failed.
But do you see that the plan by the council to enter a no-case submission will succeed? Or the chairman of the tribunal is likely to ask the defense to still go ahead and present his own case?
In the old days, when we had giants at the bar, people like the DPP of Nigeria back in the 60s, he would honorably tell the tribunal, having failed to establish my case, I hereby withdraw it. The case has crumbled. So there's nothing other than for Mr. Umar, the prosecuting counsel, to withdraw. But if he wants to go ahead and make a fool of himself, he's welcome to do so. And I do not see how the no-case submission will fail.
And if it succeeds, what do you think should happen? Should the Nigerian government apologize to the Chief Justice? Should he be reinstated?
I'm not sure she would, but should be, if I were him, I wouldn't be interested in an apology. I'd be interested in vindicating my name and showing that, you see, at the end of the day, I'm actually a debtor. That's the point that came out. He was actually seen to be a debtor owing. He should go back to his seat. But the lesson, because he's my classmate, the lesson, if I were him, in this would be to embark on a rigorous reform of the judiciary to reestablish public confidence, which is low at the moment in the judiciary. That should be his legacy in the last 2 years he has.
Yes, but you see, there have also been speculations in the media that once the matter the CCT collapses, that the federal government could bring other charges, tax evasion, some ethical infractions or whatever, and maybe take him to the High Court. The speculation is that there is an attempt to nail him by all means.
No, I agree.
To find any kind of evidence.
I can see that, and I see that the EFCC brought a petition before the NJC. I understand all that. But at the end of the day, Nigerians will be watching. The Nigerians who were even begin to speculate that this CJN was corrupt have now seen that there wasn't anything after all. So I think the federal government will eventually understand that the best way is to leave this guy alone to go and do his job. That's what I think.
But,
while the federal government quickly turned this to a corruption case, remember that the initial allegations were not corruption charges.
Yes.
They were charges of failure to declare assets.
Asset declaration.
What has happened now with the prosecution closing its case?
Yes.
Some would argue that that is still not the initial charges taken to the CCT.
No, it is. It is. The CCT's jurisdiction is very narrow. Remember, it's only an asset declaration. If you make a false declaration of your assets, then the CCB, that's the police of the CCT, would make a finding and pass it on to the CCT. So the CCT doesn't have general criminal jurisdiction. So if the case fails, as I think it will fail, then that's the end of that one. Unless, of course, the government begins to look for other things to nail him on.
But beyond what we have seen, so far, the Code of Conduct Tribunal, what is the implication for the judiciary? Because I hear people saying every time that there's an assault on the judiciary. Do you think that the judiciary has been cowed by this administration?
I think that the NJC, with all due respect to them, did not rise to the occasion. But for the petitions we filed before the NJC, they didn't make any single official statement, which is very unfortunate. So I wondered if we didn't have petitions, what they would have done. So I think the NJC needs to really review its, position and decide whether it really wants to be independent of the executive. You know that the same thing happened to Saraki? The same tactics, but he resisted it, and it failed. So I would have thought that the NJC would have backed Justice Onnoghen. They never made a statement in his favor, never. And that, for me, isn't good at all.
Well, what's your assessment of the role that has been played so far by the acting CJN in this matter? Because he seems to just assume that, well, all is well, it's normal, it's perfect.
He thinks that all is well. His defense is that I don't think that the NJC play a role in my process of being appointed the acting CJN. That's his main defense. So the way I saw it when I went to the NJC was a non-apologetic acting CJN. And also the fact that the apparatus of the judiciary seemed to have resigned without any, whimper to what has happened. And that, I think, was very, very sorry.
The president relied on an ex parte motion to swear in an acting Chief Justice of the Federation.
Yes. And
the Chief Justice of the Federation, acting, Tanko Mohammed, had said, he didn't know that Justice Onnoghen was even suspended, and the NJC the president does not need the NJC to swear him in. What is the right procedure here? Because there seems to be a lot of confusion, even within the judiciary itself.
You said who didn't know?
The president, the acting CJN, the NJC. Should the president have sought a recourse to the NJC and the Senate, like you had said initially?
Yes, the Constitution is very clear about how to remove the CJN, and it is not the way that have played out in the CCT clearly. But for Justice Tanko to say that he's not aware is to now lose sight of the story that he was also involved in a case of the same nature, where some judge in Abia presented himself before the governor, and that judge was suspended. And this current acting CJN chaired that.
Was the chairman of the panel?
He chaired it, so he would be aware. Number two would be because he says, when I was shown the order by the president, I thought it was all regular. But I would have then said to him, you recall that one of your colleagues, Justice Sylvester Nguta, had just been tried illegally before the CCT and recused on grounds of non-jurisdiction. Didn't you know about it? Wouldn't you have then said to the president, can I have a moment to go back and consult with my colleagues? That's the query. So I think he was wrong. And I'm sorry that the agency hasn't really risen to, support the CJN, who is presumed innocent until proved otherwise.
There are some people who are saying that if the CJN Walter Onnoghen succeeds in clearing his name,
yes.
That it's not worth the effort going back as the Chief Justice, that he should just resign and let it go, having cleared his name.
Absolutely not.
Okay. Why do you think so?
Why should he go? That is to acknowledge that he's been brutalized by the system. He should go back. Rather, he should be strengthened by the ordeal. Strengthened to do the sorts of things that I just described to you. Because the judiciary, the legal system, is at the lowest. Well, I'm happy that some of the cases coming out from the election tribunals yesterday, Zamfara, Osun, shows that, well, there's still some hope. But there's a lot to do to revamp the judiciary. That's the role that Onnoghen should play for living.
You say he was your classmate. I don't know whether you've been in touch with him. And if you have been in touch with him, how is he taking all of this?
I've not seen him. Never, ever. Okay. I'm just doing it institutionally as a lawyer, former president of the Nigerian Bar Association, as a senior advocate of Nigeria. I felt that what they did to him was wrong, and I'm doing it on principle.
Well, let me take you back to the elections, because you just mentioned the election petition tribunals. The election petition.
So many of them.
No,
Atiku.
the Atiku case. Right. In the Atiku case, you came forward and said Atiku should not bother to go to the tribunal, that it was not necessary.
Yes.
And some people described you as an enemy of democracy for making that suggestion.
Well, I was misquoted.
Okay.
I didn't say Atiku should not go to the tribunal because he would lose, which was what you media men do. You always give... Yes.
Don't blame journalists.
You always twist the story. All I said was I looked at the entire film. I'm one of Nigeria's most experienced election petition lawyers. I've been at this game since 1999. And so I said, look, if you read the Osun decision, you will see the hurdle. First of all, not only must you prove election irregularities, you must show how those irregularities substantially affected you. So having looked at all of that, I just felt, I said to Vice President Atiku, maybe there's another role. I see, and that might happen, I see a sort of June 12. Since I was very strong in June 12, something tells me that something is playing out that will look like that. And I thought between going to the tribunal and leading the new June 12 struggle, I thought Atiku was best suited. That was my personal opinion. Immediately Atiku decided, because we had communication, and explained why there was a strong need to go, and having read the petition, I'm now of the clear view that the petition discloses substantial and serious issues to be tried. And therefore, I support his going to the petition tribunal, even though originally I said he shouldn't go.
So you've changed your mind?
You can say that, yes.
Okay, so it's not the fault of journalists then?
Yes. I've changed my mind. I've changed my mind, yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's take you back to the initial question Dr. Bati asked you about the voting pattern, which in the 2019 presidential elections, which you raised concerns about the ethnicity and primordial sentiments that prevailed. But are you consoled by President Muhammadu Buhari's reiterated comments and statements in recent times to say his second term will be an inclusive governance, perhaps a government for the people without recourse to their ethnicity?
No. I want to first see how the petition plays out. Because as I said to you, I think the petition discloses what we call in law serious tribal issues. The petition has 4 grounds, so that the legitimacy of President Buhari's
no, 5 grounds actually, I think.
In fact, 4. But 4 with another 4.
Okay.
Yes.
With the age.
4. One is the issue of qualification. One is corrupt practices, non-compliance with the
Electoral
Act, and then the issue of wrong collation. Okay. But in the issue of qualification, there's something that appears as the fifth ground, which is falsification of giving false information in respect of his qualification. Okay. Because the affidavit in support of the nomination form by the president was sworn in 2014. That is a bit worrying. So my point was, we need to clear all this. It's a matter of legitimizing President Buhari. I think it would be in his own interest that the petition is resolved. If it goes in his favor, then the point you make about inclusiveness will arise. But if it does not go in his favor, then the other man will come in. So that's the crucial point now. Nigerians should all focus, and it's going to be a very interesting petition. It's going to be the most exciting technical petition we've ever seen. WikiLeaks and all that are going to be at play. You have all the top election attack dogs in play
involved
on both sides. So it's going to be brutal. I know that on the point about the INEC server, the opposition legal team, they're going to raise hell.
They're already going to court.
They're going to raise hell.
Festus Keyamo has already written a petition to the police.
To raise hell because the server shows what, in the view of Atiku, represents the true score.
But they argue that it is illegal to access the INEC server.
In law, how you get evidence is irrelevant. So the issue of admissibility of the server, in my view, will be admitted. But I know that the opposition will make heavy weather because that server shows 1.6 million votes in favor of Atiku. So I just hope that, and that's why I say I'm happy I changed my mind. I just hope that when all this plays out, Nigerians will see. I'm also interested in the fact that the petition refers to a ground that the chief returning officer should have declared the election inconclusive. The votes between the two leading candidates were 3.6. But there's a very strong allegation in the petition. One was that there were cancellation of votes, 2.9 million, and votes did not hold, 2.6 million. Total is 5.6. So there's no margin.
Mainly in PDP strongholds.
Mainly in
PDP
PDP strongholds. Yes. So there is no margin of lead.
Well, but earlier on you referred to June 12th.
Yes.
Now, can you help us clarify that connection? Because you said you foresee a June 12th process. How?
How is that this is the worst election in Nigeria's history? It is not accepted by a lot of people. And unless we take time to legitimize it, things might just get out of hand. The June 12 process went through a legitimate vote counting. It got annulled. So there are patterns. It wasn't accepted, but it was forced down our throats. Will this happen? Will there be a person who would then say, no, we don't accept this? I don't know. But in my mind, I see, an eclipse coming. Unless this petition is resolved one way or the other for Atiku or for Buhari in a way that is transparent, fair, and clarifies the doubts we all have.
Well, let me link this whole political process again to Onnoghen.
Yes.
Now that you're talking about election petitions and all of that.
Yes.
There's a conspiracy theory that perhaps the reason Walter Onnoghen CJN got into trouble was because certain strategists in government didn't think that it would be a pliable CJN if some of these election petitions ended up in the Supreme Court.
Yes.
It remains at the level of conspiracy theory, but do you see any merit in that conspiracy?
Well, conspiracy theories are what they are. There's no evidence to prove it. But there's the story about the witch and the baby. So I will not dismiss it. The role the Chief Justice plays in selecting the panel, of course, let's face it, there are 6 people on the panel plus the CJN. So 7 eminent Supreme Court judges will sit. So I personally doubt that 7 justices can be influenced. But that perception is there, and it's something we should worry about. And it is something that is widespread and discussed. Onnoghen was taken out in order that the government of the day will have their way. And in reviewing all the election petition tribunals from 1998, you find a very strong role of the federal government in trying to influence. In the time of Waste, I actually went to U.S. Embassy to complain that Obasanjo was forcing him to give a decision in his favor. So it is not unusual that the government has gone after the judges. So the conspiracy theory is well-founded, even though there may be no evidence.
Well, you have just said now that this is the worst elections ever in Nigeria's history.
Yes.
Well, those who benefit from fraud processes like this really do not do anything about it once they're in power, except for maybe late President Musa Yar'Adua.
Absolutely.
And so the question is, how do we then move forward to ensure that we have a credible, more transparent electoral process?
But why should we want to have a more transparent electoral process? If I was running for office, I run and become governor, I'd like to clutter the system. Why is it that President Buhari did not sign the Electoral Amendment Bill? One reason, it created transparency. It enabled the electoral results to be transmitted in a way that will be clear to all of us to a system. That's the server. The server was always there, by the way. All that that intended law would have done was to make it legal. So the INEC guys have always had the server. You know, the card reader acts as a transmitter. So it accredits, but when the polling unit president has finished, announced the results, he transmits it to that server. So all results from 119,000 polling units are sitting in the server. But it would have been available to us should the law have been passed. So what is the interest of a governor or a president to create electoral reforms that makes the election transparent? No, they wanted what happened in Kano.
No, I guess our question is about what do you think should be the ideal situation? Because the way you've described it now, you've described it from a pragmatic point of view.
And a hopeless situation.
The problem is that when we've not had a leader who is ready to change Nigeria. That's my point. I get your point. In an ideal situation, the most ideal, or the person who came closest to do something about it was Yar'Adua. But no president of Nigeria, not even Obasanjo, has, even Jonathan, thought about tinkering with the electoral process. I was a member of the Waste panel. We came up with a raft of reforms. Nobody implemented them. So if you ask me what is the ideal situation, then I'm going to ask you, where's the ideal president? We don't have any. That's the problem. We don't. Didn't you see all the guys that were killed in Kano? Brutalized? Gandoje and the other guy? So it is a do for die. What did that man call it, Obasanjo? Say, do or die. I can kill my mother to become governor. And you're telling me about ideal. There's nothing.
Okay, we've had persons on this program who have been talking about the Waste panel report.
Yes.
And, you know, they've been throwing up some of the recommendations, and we've had 1 or 2 persons saying Nigeria must go back to that Waste report and take certain things out of it. If you were a member of that panel, what were some of those recommendations that you think deserve some kind of urgent attention
The first was
to reform our electoral system?
The first was that INEC was doing far too much. And there was a need to unbundle INEC in diverse ways. We thought that INEC should not regulate political parties, so we created the Political Party Regulatory Authority to deal with all the issues of, you know, parties complying. For instance, we had 91, 93 parties. Had you had a regulatory authority focusing solely on that, I don't think 10 parties would be on the ballot. So that's one. So INEC would then focus more on the work of the referee. You know, in a football match, Chelsea versus Arsenal, the referee comes into the match, everything is set. It's not his business to mark the field with white chalk or to mark the 18 or the center circle. He's the whistle. So we reduced INEC to carrying the whistle. We removed from INEC even the issue of printing ballot papers. We removed from INEC the issue of electoral offenses and all that. So INEC became lean and efficient, able to focus on the main job of the day, which is counting the votes. That I think should be implemented. That's my take.
Let me take you now from the elections. Well, maybe it's still related to the elections because we saw a lot of offsets in these general elections, how the mighty have fallen, some would say. In Kwara State, it was the Onnoghen movement, which is the enough is enough.
Yep.
And surprisingly, that movement shifted, or the slogan shifted to Lagos, the Free Lagos movement, Orange movement. And you were linked to that movement.
What's wrong with that? Yes, Tinubu has been there 20 years, and that's enough. You can't have one man pushing around Lagos for 20 years. He's a good friend of mine, lives near me. But I just thought that 20 years is enough. He was governor 8 years. They put in Fashola for 8 years, put in Akin.
But he was never on the ballot. Tinubu was never on the ballot beyond his 2 terms.
Come on, please be real. Tinubu controls Lagos.
Yeah, but you make it sound as if it's Asiwaju Bola Tinubu imposing himself on the people. He doesn't force people, I believe, to come and queue up in front of his residence.
Ruben, votes do not count.
And to listen to him. And
votes, let's be honest, let's be real. If we were real, we won't be here. Votes don't count in Nigeria. We have godfathers. And Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the Lord of Babylon, is an extremely
Some say the lion of Babylon.
And he's my friend, and we helped to bring him to power. Because he was part of the human rights movement, the late Abraham Adesoye and co, when he lost the governorship in nomination in 1998. But we are sure that we wanted one of our own, and we put him. And I think he's been there far too long, and it's time to go.
But don't you give him some credit? If you say he's been in charge in terms of providing leadership as a godfather for 20 years,
yes,
he must have some kind of qualities.
There's no doubt about it.
You know, that have those qualities sustaining him, making it possible for more people to go and pay homage.
He knows. I've been to his place, of eating and drank in his house and had robust conversations, and he knows I have the greatest respect for him. But 20 years is, come on. It's like saying that Jimmy Carter will still be president. I don't support all these guys who hung around. Oh, let the place breathe. This is a megapolis, one of the world's 5 largest capitals. But go and see whether it is. Refuse where I come from in Apapa, everywhere, strewn everywhere. Transportation on the ground. So,
but that should not be Tinubu's fault. It should be the fault of the current players in the Lagos state government.
But you see, the problem is that he has a hand in all this. He has a hand.
Proven or being speculated?
I know that. I don't care if you believe it, but I know that he has a hand in choosing who is the leader of Lagos. So, and he hasn't denied it.
So what is the option for Lagos, and what is your movement really pushing for? Because there's no viable opposition in Lagos. And look at that.
Good government. That's what.
And how do you get good government with no viable opposition?
By starting the process. When we started the CLO in 1985, people thought we were mad, just 5 of us. But we started the process, and it pushed, and it pushed, and it pushed. So something will start one day. What we're saying is, notwithstanding the sterling qualities of Asiwaju for Lagos, it's time for him to move on, to allow the system to breathe. That's all. What's wrong with that?
Well, let me ask you a personal question.
Do that.
Now, I guess, you know, if President Buhari or whoever becomes president, after all the election petitions and all that, you know, would like to, you know, give positions to people like you, you know, with your experience, with your exposure, with your connections. Will you accept?
Why not? Absolutely.
Even if it is a Buhari government?
Absolutely, because I have nothing against him being Nigeria's president if it is legitimate. Nothing. And I know that in the field of legal transformation, I have 40 years of history behind me to contribute. And I will be, it will be hypocritical of me to be offered the opportunity to change things, and I say no, mainly because it's President Buhari. Provided he has come to that office legitimately, I would support him.
Well, this one, you still have any other question for him because we have to let him go?
Yes, let's let him go.
All right, thank you very much
for being on the
Thank
show.
you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, you've been listening to our conversation with Olisa Agbakoba, SAN. It's time now for a short break. When we come back, Femi Falana will be here with us to speak on what he calls the unconstitutional allocation of oil blocks to individuals and international oil companies, among several other issues.